Hi everybody. Let me start by saying Happy Father's Day to all you proud and even the not so proud dads out there. Have a great day, and it's your day. Celebrate. Also a father today is James Paul McCartney, and it's also Paul's 75th birthday. And I was talking to some people. They wanted to know, am I going to do anything on the videos for Paul's 75th birthday? I mean, it is a kind of a big one, right? 75. So I didn't really have any ideas. I gotten some suggestions that maybe I'd want to do a Paul is dead video, talk about that hoax. Well, I say that's going to take a lot of planning for the day that I inevitably do that. I'm not looking forward to it because I think it's a load of malarkey. But be that as it may, I will tell you that Paul is very much alive today, turning 75. And what I decided to do was borrow an idea that began with Canadian stud muffin Larry Graves and his channel, where he had done a video where he was showing, I believe, his top 10 favorite solo Beatle album covers. I think it was a suggestion from one of his fans. And I noticed that Matthew Smith, who was also out there in the vinyl community, he did his own top 10 solo Beatles covers. And I think I'll get around to doing that eventually myself, but I thought, when I was preparing that video, I had thought when I first saw Larry's video that I was going to do a similar video for my channel, but I thought there are so many solo album covers that I like that I can't think I can narrow it down to 10 album covers. So I thought maybe Paul is going to have his own 10. So he's got so many albums, so I figured, all right, well, let's start with that for his birthday. So here, as of this date, as of this moment, are what I would consider to be right now. You always have to qualify your videos by saying that. It could always change at the drop of a hat. But as of right now, these are my, I think, 10 favorite Paul covers. I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to go from least favorite to most favorite. And, when doing this, I confirmed something that I really suspected for a while. And that is that I don't really think Paul had interesting album covers once we got into the later 80s and beyond. And I'll talk about that maybe another time. It always seemed to me that Paul wanted to have less of his face featured on the covers, if you think about it. Personally, I'm old-fashioned when it comes to covers. I like kind of non-minimalist. I like my covers to be kind of exciting, or I'm big on photographs. I'm not so much for like, the less of the better, less is more. I'm not really a fan of that philosophy. So here's what I've chosen for my 10 covers. Number 10, bringing up the rear. And by the way, before I show this, this has nothing to do with the albums. A lot of times people gravitate towards their favorite records, what their favorite record albums are. They seem to pick covers based on that. This is not necessarily my favorite or least favorite record albums. This is just the covers. Number 10, I went with McCartney 2 from 1980. I thought that, I always liked that kind of, look on Paul's face. I always thought that was a pretty interesting shot. Kind of looks like the way Paul might have been, or the expression if he first heard Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys and didn't like it. But we know that Paul loved Pet Sounds, so that doesn't really work there. Well, anyway, I was trying to give one out as a shout-out to Matthew Smith. He said that that was Paul's expression the first time that he listened to a Yoko album or something like that. So, sorry I couldn't use the Beach Boys because he liked the Beach Boys. Anyway, for number 9, I went with the Wildlife album from 1971. The whole album itself is just a kind of outdoorsy, going up to the country kind of feel and vibe to it, very primal. I like that about the record. But same thing for the group photo there, just hanging out there and playing guitar in the middle of the water. I like that, I like that. So that's number 9. Number 8, this probably could have gone much higher, maybe should have gone much higher, but that's how I'm feeling right now. Always liked this cover from way back. It's Ram, the Ram album cover, which I'm going to close this. I don't know if this is going to help on the glare. No, not really. This is mostly the color scheme. I like that it's the colors, the orange, the purple. The shot of Paul with the Ram is good too. I've always enjoyed the design on here. It's a very unconventional looking album. The drawing parts of it. So the colors, that's why I like that. Number 7, I went with this album. It's Wings' London Town. And I've always liked that. When I listen to this album, I always feel like it's, you know, a cold and rainy, foggy day in London Town, like the song kind of says, you know, rain was falling down upon the dirty ground of London Town. And this looks like Paul's like kind of has a chill, and he's kind of like trying to button his overcoat there. And I just like the grayness and the London connection to this. Now, the backside of the album shows you like on a nice sunny type of day. It looks like, wow, the weather's really agreeable and everything's bright. This particular album was recorded, I think, in the summertime, or at least on the water, so this doesn't really fit the mood of the album per se, but the title, the song London Town, that's why I like it. Now I went with, that was number 7. Now number 6, this may be a lot of people's very favorite album, but I think the reason I put it kind of lower on here is only because, I don't know, it's kind of played out for me. It's a Band on the Run album. It's a classic shot of the group in a, I don't know, police headlight. There they all are. They're on the run. They're fleeing from the law. And you have all the actors there, among them Christopher Lee, who I grew up with in the Hammer horror films as Count Dracula. Well, that's Bela Lugosi impersonation. Of course, Christopher Lee didn't talk with a Hungarian accent. But I was Count Dracula. I kept trying to do I am Dracula. I welcome you to my house. A very British gentleman. British gentlemanly Dracula. Anyway, so that's what I picked for number 6, Band on the Run. Now we're into the top 5. And you'll notice all the albums that I've picked so far are from the decade of the 70s. There's no getting around it. I like the 1970s style of Paul's albums. But here's one that I picked that's much later. Number 5, I went with Chaos and Creation in the Backyard, 2005. And there's a picture that Paul's brother Michael took of him out in the backyard. And it's just a wonderful shot on its own. But I think the reason I like this, aside from the fact that it's a great picture, is it within the context of the album title, you know, Chaos and Creation out in the Backyard. Paul is sitting there, and just when you think of a young man, just a little bit away from having been a boy, really, maybe he is just getting out of boyhood, all the magic that would come from this man's brain, and fingers on guitar, and writing with a pen, to see him creating out there, sitting there, I just marvel at that moment in time. And when you know all the things we do know now, and how much was accomplished by that man. So now we go for another album that's not too old, and this is going to surprise a lot of people. I kind of cheated a little bit here, but, you know, nobody said it had to be studio albums, right? So I picked a live album here. 1993, Paul is Live. I love the takeoff on the Abbey Road cover here, and how it looks exactly the same, except that we have Paul seemingly in the same suit thereabouts as he was back on the Abbey Road March, this time with, I guess, a replacement for his sheepdog Martha on a leash. And I love the tribute to the Abbey Road album. I also like the title, Paul is Live. Get it? You know, that's pretty cool. So I really like this album cover. And that is number 4. And now number 3. This could have been number 1. I very well almost made it number 1, except for one thing. And I'll explain it. I went with the first album, McCartney. And the reason it's number 3 for me, and not necessarily number 1, is I really prefer, I mean, I love this picture. There's something so simple about it. And even though I said I don't like basic, simple kind of albums and minimalist albums, that says so much to me in a way. But it's the back cover that I like. The picture of Paul with his daughter Mary snuggled safely in his overcoat. I love this shot. It's one of my favorite Paul pictures of all time. And how great is this to show on Father's Day of all days? I hope Paul's watching this. If somebody knows Paul, alert him to this video. Tell him that I want him to see it. There it is. It's a beautiful shot. Now, if this was the front cover, if this was actually the front of the cover, the front of the album, lettering and picture, I might make it number 1. That's the reason I made it number 3, because it's a back cover, really, that I like even more than the front cover. Now we got number 1 and number 2. And these albums right now are definitely number 1 and 2 for me, no question. The only thing I was wondering, and it was puzzling me, was which one is going to be number 1 and which one's going to be number 2. Because quite frankly, they could have gone either way. So I didn't know which way to go. I flipped them back and forth in my mind at least 11 times. And I came up with it in this order. I went with Back to the Egg as number 2. Often neglected album, but the cover is just so beautiful to me. You know, looking like they're in outer space. You know, this was kind of the period where you had all the space movies. Alien, 1979, Alien, James Bond's Moonraker, which themselves were takeoffs on the Star Wars saga, you know, coming out in 77 and so on. And, you know, they're just hanging out there in a room, and the board opens up to reveal outer space. Very, very spacey, Star Trek-like. I like it. I got a Lawrence Juba signature back here. You could faintly see it in ballpoint pen. Lawrence signed this way back in 1982 at a Beatle Fest. I've since met him a couple of times after that, but anyway, so I love this cover. It's beautiful. I like how there's no real writing on it, just stock cover. Well, a lot of them have no writing on it. What am I talking about? But for number 1, this is how I'm feeling today. How I've been feeling the last few days while I was planning this video. It's going to surprise a lot of people, I think. Not by any stretch of the imagination my favorite album, not even close. But I've always loved this cover, and it's Red Rose Speedway at number 1. I don't know what it is about it. Just love the look of Paul with a rose shoved in his mouth. I think it's fun. It's hysterical. I just like the look of it. And you got the motorcycle here, or whatever the hell this is. I really like that cover. Always have. And, of course, we got the Braille writing here. There's Braille for the blind. And if you read it and you know how to read Braille, it says, I love you, Stevie. Or we love you, Stevie. We love you, Stevie. Designed for Stevie Wonder to read. And that's it. As of today, my top 10 Paul McCartney covers. Ask me again next week and I'll shuffle them around a bit. But anyway, I really appreciate everybody watching. And once again, happy Father's Day out there. And have a good one. Take care.